Folks, welcome to Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in the way becomes the way. I'm your host, David Suson, and today's guest is someone who quietly redefines what leadership looks like when no one is watching. Robynn Storey is the founder of Storeyline Resumes, a multi-million-dollar company that has helped hundreds of thousands of people find work, find confidence, and find their voice at some of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. She built her business not by chasing power or titles, but by leading with care, humility, and an almost stubborn belief that people matter more than processes. Robynn is also a best-selling author, a mentor to millions through LinkedIn, and a leader who sends care packages when people are sick, jumps in to answer phones when needed, and hires for character over credentials. Her story includes walking away from a high-paying executive role, waiting tables after that to build something meaningful, and creating a culture where ego has no seat at the table. I'm excited for this conversation because Robynn doesn't just talk about leadership, she lives it. Robynn, welcome to Inside the Leader's Mind.
That was so lovely. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am thrilled to have you here. And I want to get started just by helping people understand a little bit about how you explain what you do. If they knew nothing about you, and even from the intro, if they're meeting you for the first time, how do you usually explain what you do?
Sure. I own a company called Storeyline Resumes. Obviously self-explanatory. We write resumes. We also do something called the Searchlight program, which helps executives really sort of redefine their career paths, get all of their tools together. It comes with all of the things that you would need for a job search, a new resume, a new profile, but a lot of coaching, a lot of accountability, a lot of strategy around who it is that you want to be next in your career. And we've been around for 25 years. We've been doing this for a long time, and have a team of 70 here located in the USA, but we help people tell their best professional stories so they get the best professional results.
Hey, and you want to hear the funniest thing? And I wasn't going to tell you this, but I have to. We've messaged each other, we've talked, everything. And it wasn't until this morning, and I was reviewing, and I go, Robynn Storey. Like, it finally hit me that it's not just the story. I thought, what a cool name for a company. Yeah, so I'm a little slow sometimes. I love how you were able to incorporate your name into the name of the business. So kudos to you.
My husband and I came up with that over a cigarette and a beer left 28 years ago. I said, I'm going to do this company, and I think I'm going to do resumes or some HR consulting or whatever. And, so we were talking one evening after the kids were in bed, and that's what we came up with. So there we go.
I love it. So in the intro, it talked about, you'd worked a corporate job and you walked away from this job to build something of your own. What told you it was time to do that, even when maybe it didn't even make logical sense to walk away from a good job?
Anything really ever made logical sense. I wasn't ever really that invested in my career. I come from a really great family. I grew up very poor, but I had a big Italian family. And for me, family was always first. And I don't think that I knew that we were poor until I was an adult or maybe even a teenager when I started going to other people's houses and they would talk about kind of vacations that they were taking. I was never really all that wrapped up in having this really great career. I think that a lot of my career was just being sort of in the right place at the right time. I had a very positive attitude. I love to learn, love people. That made me sort of a target for opportunity. So walking away from it wasn't as painful as you might think it would be. I wanted to get my daughter on and off the school bus. I wanted to have more kids. And, I felt like, well, if I'm going to have this big career, then who's going to be raising these kids? I just felt like it wasn't my calling in life to have a career like that, to be away, to be traveling. So I just wanted to start something, and I wasn't really sure what that was.
So you leave, and you were at Pepsi. Can we say that? I just did. So we did. You left Pepsi, but I understand somewhere after Pepsi, you were waiting tables.
Yeah. So when I went to my husband's a corporate controller. And at the time he was finishing up his CPA. We live in rural Pennsylvania. He was driving into Pittsburgh. So he was driving one way, I was driving another. And I just said to him after a while, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be away. I commuting too many hours. I felt like I was missing too much of our daughter's life. And I said, I want to quit. And, we talked about this earlier, but when you grow up poor, you're sort of always used to kind of managing without or managing your budget. And he had no hesitation. And he said, okay, I'll make you a deal. You can quit, but you have to find something, some sort of part-time job or something to cover the groceries for a year. I can float the rest. And then after that, we'll figure out what we're going to do. So I quit my job and I called a friend of mine who owned a restaurant. I was like, hey, can I come and wait tables at your restaurant? And she was like, absolutely. I was the worst waitress. I couldn't carry a tray. I would carry like plates out individually. And, I love chit-chatting with people. And, I stayed there for 2 years as I was getting my business off the ground, and she was sorry to see me go. So I think I did an okay job.
Hey, this is what's crazy. I do a lot of work with executives and professionals. And one of the biggest things, the tagline is what's in the way becomes the way. One of the biggest focus areas that I do in my coaching and work with teams is getting through the identity and the ego that holds people back. And so the question is, how did you get through this idea of, okay, I've got this great corporate job, I'm an executive, and now I'm going to wait tables? A lot of people their ego would not allow that. It's like, that's below me. I could never do that. How did you deal with that? How did you get through that?
Never had that kind of ego. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm very self-deprecating. I don't think of myself as being that important. I was never really that tied into my identity, being my job. I was more tied into my identity of being a wife and a mother and a daughter and a granddaughter. So I was never not proud to be a waitress. And I certainly was never not proud to own a business or to work for Pepsi or other corporations. I am, and I was proud of those things, but it wasn't the thing that drove me. I didn't need that kind of validation from people. I was just as happy, with somebody that I had waited on that told me, they really enjoyed their meal as I was getting a bonus from Pepsi. So I think when you
That's crazy
mindset around money or around what makes you happy, I just want to do a good job. I want to do right by people. And that sort of has been the guiding factor of, how I built this business. Like today, for instance, is Martin Luther King Day. I am in the office. Everybody else is off. So I'm answering the emails, I'm doing the spreadsheets, I'm scheduling the meetings, I'm answering the phone, because I want them to be off. I don't want to say to them, I can't work in the office today. There's, 70 people. Maybe some of the writers are working. I think there's one salesperson on today, but I want everybody else to take the day off. So I don't mind jumping in where I need to. And I love that. I need to be busy. We got a new puppy a couple of years ago, and my husband and I keep laughing about how we keep saying, oh my God, we love you so much. We were always hugging and kissing her. We love you so much. And my husband said, what would we do without this dog? Because our kids are grown and gone now. And I said to him, I need to be needed. And he needs me. And I love that. And so I think that's what fuels me. I need to be needed. That's the thing.
I love that. I love it. So let me ask you, and maybe you just answered it. During this whole time period, right, from Pepsi to waiting tables before you started your business, is there something you learned about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before, something that came out?
I'm a hustler. I love to work. I work. I don't feel like work is work. I never feel overworked. I work 7 days a week and at some point or another. I've always enjoyed it. Even growing up, started babysitting at 13. By the time I was 15, I had 3 jobs. I graduated college with 4.0. I think I had 4 jobs while I was in college. I am a hustler. I grew up in a family of workers. My grandmother was a waitress for 55 years. My dad worked in factories his whole life. My grandfather was a hustler as well. I just have that hustle mentality, but not in a bad way and not in a way that burns me out. But I need something to do. Like yesterday was Sunday. I just cooked all day. I mean, it's just the two of us. I cook and then we eat and then I freeze it because I'm not like a lay on the couch or lay around kind of person. I just need to be doing something all the time.
How do those lessons that you learned then, like this whole idea that you're a hustler, how does that impact how you lead people today and build a culture? Does it hurt? Does it help?
I am a hustler, but I don't expect my people to be a hustler. I think more than anything else, I'm a nice person, and I know that that's like not a popular thing to say. But what really defines my culture in my company and my relationship with others that work here is that I want them to have good lives. I wanted other mothers and fathers to be able to do what I did, get their kids on and off the school bus, put them to bed at night. That's why we're 100% remote. We pay extremely well. We have people that have been here for, 20 years. And that's the reason, because I want other folks to sort of enjoy the same kind of things that, someone had said to me on LinkedIn not long ago. It sort of rubbed me the wrong way. I can't remember even what the hell the post was about, but someone said that's coming from a place of privilege. And I thought, like, what privilege is that? It is not a privilege when you've worked really hard your whole life to get somewhere. That's just sort of the result of your effort, right? And that's what I always wanted for my people. They do really great work, and then they sort of get to enjoy this really great balance. And that's
Jim, I want to clarify that. When they said you're coming from a place of privilege, what were they referring to? Which part of this that you work hard or you care or what?
I own a business. We're a multi-million-dollar business. They're probably thinking, well, she's showing up to do LinkedIn posts, and then, she's headed on a cruise. That's actually not the case. But even if I was, that would be my prerogative, because I work to get there, right? I think that in this country, and I don't want to get into politics, I think that there's a sort of all of a sudden over the past few years, this very negative connotation about being successful. When I keep hearing about tax the rich and tax the billionaire, yeah, I think they pay pretty hefty taxes. I know I do. People work really, really hard to get where they are. And that is not a negative. When you get to be successful and kind of live a life that is fulfilling, and that you're paying it forward and you're being good with other people, or whatever the case may be, that's the definition of success, right? That shouldn't be viewed as a negative. And sometimes I think that, people like look at that and they say, maybe I don't even know what the hell I talked about, but it was something that was like, oh, that's coming from a place of privilege. I'm like,
that goes back to the comment I made about identity and ego, that the people, they let their identity and ego hold them back because they judge others, and maybe they're feeling bad about themselves. That's my guess, Who knows? Well, what's fascinating to me.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Right. I agree.
Words to live by.
So my mom said that to me. I said that to my kids, and hopefully they learn that, right? What's also fascinating to me is from all the CEOs, executives, founders that I've interviewed over the last probably 20, 30 years, what is fascinating is usually high-driven, high-performing individuals like yourself they expect that from their team. You see this in the news with some of the, and they just, I'm paraphrasing, I'm exaggerating this, but I say they browbeat their employees, right? As opposed to humanity and caring, and really, do you have to work at that, or was that easy? Because typically high achievers expect that.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a normal byproduct of my personality. I am very driven in a way that when I want something, I want it. So if I have a question for you, you better have an answer for me. I feel like there's a trade-off. You've got a really good working environment. You do a great job. It's sort of, I pat your back, you pat mine kind of thing. But if I go to a staff member and I have a question and they can't answer, or I need something from them, or something was due to me, we're going to have a conversation about that. I'm very straightforward. I don't bullshit. I don't beat around the bush. It becomes a balance, but everybody kind of knows that about me. So my daughter, Alexa, really runs the day-to-day of Storeyline operations. She's a brilliant leader. She's the sweetest human being, very, very smart, also empathetic, which I think that she sort of gets from me. But sometimes I'll show up and I'll just start messaging people, and she'll say, Mom, why are you here making people nervous? And I say, well, because if I have a question, I want an answer. What happened on this particular day? Or I got a note from this customer and they were unhappy about something. Somebody explained to me what happened here so we can fix this and not let this happen again. So I'm extremely direct. I don't ever get mad. But if I want to know something, I want to know it. But on the flip side, I also am incredibly family oriented. I want people to have balance. I want people to be happy. I want people to be well. You mentioned about the sick packages, which has sort of become kind of this running story that we tell at Storyline. I had a young marketer one time, who her boyfriend got the flu. And I happened to be out of the office that day, and all of my staff has my personal cell number. And anyway, I was out and about doing something, I can't remember what, and my phone rang, and it was her. And I said, "Oh, hi." I said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Is something wrong?" And she said, "My boyfriend has the flu, and I don't know what to do." And she called me. And because she knows I'm a mom and I know these things. So we talked about it. We talked about his symptoms and what she should be doing and blah, 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 blah. And then I sent them a little care package, of course. And that was kind of the end of it. And then a couple of days later, she's like, "Oh, thank you so much. He's feeling so much better." And to me, I don't care how many millions of dollars you might have made, how many people you have employed. If someone on your team can call you for advice about something personal, and feel comfortable, you've won.
And define win.
That people that work for you trust you and like you and admire your either personality or your character enough to share something personal of themselves, and ask for your input. That to me is like a mom thing. And I, first and foremost of anything, always wanted to be the best mom.
Love that. How does that show up in the team members, in their work ethic, their engagement, turnover, which you kind of mentioned earlier? But does that have a direct correlation, do you believe? And how does it?
If somebody messages me, or if somebody's offline and I say to Lex, my daughter, "Is somebody, what's going on?" "Oh, somebody so-and-so has a migraine. They'll be in at 1. As soon as I see them popping in at 1, I'm messaging them, "Hey, take the rest of the afternoon off. Go soak in the hot bath. The business will be here tomorrow." I don't like to think about people working while they're sick. I don't want people to work while they're sad. If they've had a really stressful week, or somebody had, like a lot of issues on Friday afternoon at 2:00, I'll say, "Kick out of here, go open a bottle of wine." So I think that all of those little things maybe add up to some lost hours. But nothing, sort of comes between the hours and the kind of loyalty you get, when you adopt that sort of policy. And it's not something that I consciously think, "Oh, I'm just going to tell people to go drink wine." That's not what I'm talking about. That's just my personality, and I don't fight it. So if somebody says, "Hey, I had a really rough day," I say, "Hey, take off. We'll pay for the rest of the day. Don't worry about putting in hours. Go open a bottle of wine." That to me is leadership. That may sound silly to people that are leading in corporate America. But for me, that's really what has built this loyalty, this camaraderie, how we joke around, how we share things. Because, when you're looking at a business like ours, you think, "Oh, resumes, how bad can it be? You're writing resumes." It's incredibly stressful. We have hundreds of clients a week. I mean, everything is going off all at once. The phones are ringing. The text messages are coming through. We're getting inundated with emails. 27 people at once are messaging us through LinkedIn. I mean, there's like all of these portals and these avenues, and there's shit coming at you all the time. And if you're not able to kind of handle that or create an environment where people can laugh it off or take a breather, walk away, take an hour, you're not going to be successful. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to circle back on a word you used in there. You were talking about loyalty. And I think for listeners, because I speak a lot about this in my keynotes when I talk about the similar philosophy. And the problem, some people always come up to me afterward and they say, "Well, I don't just want loyal employees that are like, they're just the dog that wants to hang around the office. I want someone who's willing to do the job and go above and beyond." Talk a little bit about that side of it.
Yeah, I mean, the going above and beyond has to happen. There is someone like me, who really likes people, likes their staff, wants the best for them. There's definitely a balance of doing all of those things like, "Hey, knock off at noon and go open that wine," to not being taken advantage of. Or, I've had situations where people have tried to say, over and over. I can't ever make this deadline. Well, if you're a writer here and you miss, more than a handful of deadlines in a week, you're not going to be a writer here very long. Everything for us is driven by turnaround, right? A customer is waiting for that draft. A customer is waiting for our response. So that's not acceptable. So you have to find the balance where you want to be kind with people, but you also don't want to do it to a point where it becomes a disadvantage for your business.
But it's also, I would imagine from what I'm hearing, that the culture is known. People know what the culture is. They know the level of expectation. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but they know the level of expectation. But they know that they're treated as human, that my word here. And so it sounds like they are willing to go above and beyond because they know the way they're treated. And so they work harder, they're more engaged. Am I reading the room right?
Right. I mean, when COVID hit, we were so worried about what was going to happen with the business during COVID because, businesses were shutting down. People were getting laid off. Nobody had money. Who was going to sign up for resume services? We were so blasted. I mean, for 18 months, we literally worked in cycles where we had people working 7 days a week. We could not hire fast enough. We grew so much during COVID because people at the very beginning, they decided, I love working from home. I never want to go back to an office. I really like this balance. I think I want to shift my career. I think I want to do something different. I think I want to look for a new job. I think I want to do this. It was insane. We were literally here. I was here 7 days a week. Lexi was here 7 days a week, not all day, every day, but in some capacity. And then we would go to the writers, at the time, then I think there were maybe 42 writers and would say, can anybody take some weekend projects? And people would raise their hands. And then the next week would say, can anybody take some weekend projects? People would raise their hands. We always gave them a spiff. Okay, we'll pay an extra amount because this is like, weekend time or whatever. But we needed to get these products completed into these customers. So yeah, bonkers, right? But everybody was willing to help out. Everybody did. I had a staff member one time. She was just phenomenal. She was always in the office. And it got to the point where, I come in on Saturday mornings early. I'm usually up around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I get my cup of coffee. Enter in the office. It's nice and quiet. I can answer requests for advice. I love to dole out advice to people on LinkedIn or, customers of ours. But anyway, she was always in Saturday morning, Sunday night, Sunday afternoon. And I said to her, why are you here on the weekends? I don't really want you to be here on the weekends. And she was like, oh, I just want to check on this. I want to check on that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're married. You have kids. My kids are grown and gone. I told her, I said, if I see you because I can see when everybody's logged in. And I said, if I see you log in another weekend, I'll change the passwords. And I did. I changed the passwords and I locked her out on the weekends. It became sort of a running joke. And she's like, but I need you. And I'm like, you don't. We are not brain surgeons. I need you to go have a life. Do what you're supposed to do when you're not at work.
So I do for the loyalty in that situation. Holy cow, right?
People get very invested. And I know our customer service manager, she's like that as well. At night, especially, I think after, dinner's done and kids are, homework is done and kids are in bed, she'll log in and this and that. And I'll see her pop up on Slack and I'll say, what the hell are you doing here? Get out of here. And she laughs. She's like, I can't ever get anything past you.
So I was corporate America. I was at IBM and other large corporations. Is this, in your opinion, this style of leadership, could you do the exact same thing? Not exact, but could you lead this way if you went into corporate America today and still have the loyalty and of the team and the engagement of the team by treating employees this way? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I have had really horrible bosses in my life, and I've had some phenomenal bosses. And I had this one boss at a job right out of college, and there was a guy that I had dated. This was so many moons ago. But anyway, he couldn't let it go. Kept showing up at my place of work, kept calling me on the phone, kept doing this, kept doing that. Well, my boss at the time saw how upset I was because I couldn't get away from this guy, which is super, super persistent. And I'll never forget. He said, come on, we're going to take a walk. And we went into the front of the office building. We went into the security office And he said to the head of security, he said, if this guy shows up, I want you to call the police. Then we went to the reception desk, and he said to the receptionist, if this guy calls in, I want you to let me know. Do not patch him through to Robyn. And then he went to somebody else's. And I remember thinking, like, I would run through a wall for this guy. Like, he cared about me as a person. And I can tell you that probably for 20 years after that, until he passed away unexpectedly, we exchanged Christmas cards after I left. Those are the people that leave the impression on you. I was just a kid right out of college in a situation that I found myself in through no fault of my, and he came to bat for me at a really personal way that had nothing to do with the work that we were doing. And he's probably the person I think of most when I think of good boss, and it had nothing to do with business leadership.
That's really cool. That's really cool. What a great story. Now, when you hire, I believe you told me you hire for character over credentials. What do you notice about people that never really shows up on a resume?
I notice if they have a sense of humor. So I have a sense of humor. My husband is hysterically funny. I grew up around funny people. I want to be around funny, happy people. So I look for people that sort of project that, laugh at a joke, and feel very optimistic. Obviously, you have to be able to speak appropriately. We're a writing company. So if you're answering the phone, you need to be using the correct kind of grammar. If you're writing a resume, obviously you need to be able to write. But once we sort of get the basics out of the way, I'm looking for people that are very optimistic, people that don't get shaken if something goes wrong, people that are not laying blame on other folks if, something goes south, and folks that feel like they could be adaptable in situations that might be changing all of the time. And I think a lot of that has to do with your character and sort of how you present yourself. So those are the things that I'm looking for.
What about in corporate America? One of the things that I saw when I was hiring people, I was looked at, I hire for character because that's what I learned at IBM, right? IBM, you hire for a character. If you look at Chick-fil-A, the kids they hire that are 15, 16 years old, they hire for character. Trader Joe's, right? They hire for character. As you're working with resumes, and obviously you're getting feedback from people about their job, I'm sure. What are you seeing in the corporate world? Are they looking at just, hey, I don't care about character? Or is it 50-50? What have you seen and have things changed over 25 years?
Elimination of any kind of personality characteristics that are coming out in the interview process, because so many companies are automating their vetting processes. So when you are hiring, and people are submitting their resumes, unless that resume is making it through the applicant tracking systems, unless that resume has all the right keywords, unless that resume is hitting all of the right requirement check marks, you're never really getting to a human. Once you do get to a human, it also feels to me like everything is very much automated. Same kinds of questions. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about a time when you blah, blah, blah. I feel like the personality has gone out of the hiring process. And back in the day when I was in HR and we talked about the internal HR compass, you either have it or you don't. I think that it's almost been automated out of people that have that compass, being able to follow your instinct and hire. Yeah, maybe you don't check all of the boxes, but I still think you would be great because of X, Y, and Z. It's like in hiring, that latitude is gone. Companies aren't giving their HR folks the kind of latitude they need to make those kinds of hires. And I think that it all ends up being we're checking boxes. We're checking boxes. We're checking boxes. We're covering our asses. This person doesn't have the right kind of credential or the right kind of degree or the right kind of this or the right kind of that. If something doesn't work out, it's going to be my fault. So I would rather maybe hire somebody that isn't as vivacious or gregarious or neurodivergent or whatever. But I've checked all the boxes and I've covered my ass. And I feel like we're going way in the wrong direction in hiring based on that. And I've been happened for years.
And what's the risk to the organizations that do that, do you think?
Well, I think you end up with a lot of people that look and sound and talk and think the same. I did a LinkedIn post a couple of years ago that sort of took off unexpectedly. And the headline of the LinkedIn post was, "Where are all the weirdos?" Growing up or coming up through jobs, you always had that one weird guy or that one weird girl that dyed her hair pink, or the weird guy that, showed up in, no socks and whatever. But they were smart. They knew how to fix things. They knew how to do things that other people didn't know how to do. And I think that we've lost the capability for hiring weird or quiet or introspective or shy. It's like we all have to be able to answer all of these questions correctly. We all have to be able to, fill out pass this personality test correctly. And I don't think everybody can. And I think that's a problem.
It's fascinating. I don't know the current statistics on this, but I'll bet if you look at, even though companies go through the process they go through now, I'll bet they're still maybe batting 50%. I'll bet less of good hires.
40%
what is it?
Of hires are considered bad hires. That number has been fairly consistent over the past decade. So basically what that means is that 40% of the people that you've hired during your 17-step interview process are not going to work out. They're going to leave before the first year. They're not a good cultural fit. They don't understand the requirements for the job. For me, that seems to be more of a company problem than a person problem, which means that onboarding, training, performance, development support is almost non-existent. So all of those things then add up to 40% of hires are bad hires. So, I'm old enough to remember, and you may be old enough to remember too, when you walked into an office, he handed the receptionist your resume, and maybe the manager came out and had a chat with you, and pretty soon, they were offering you a job, right? And you stayed for 20 years, you stayed for 10 years, you stayed for 8 years. Now we're making people go through much more intensive processes, interviews and panel interviews, and personality tests and skills assessment tests. And some people are doing bot interviews, and now we're doing blah, 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 blah. And still you're coming out at 40% or bad hires. So your processes have gotten much more involved, but it hasn't really improved outcomes. And I think that's something that needs to be studied.
Especially because we're not using gut instinct. I talk about this a lot where, when we're in a room, and this is I'm working on this article right now. And when we're in a room, there's a different level of energy between people compared to phone, paper, or even, video. And I think a lot of that human instinct that we have had millions of years to hone, we're not leveraging anymore. And that's, I think, part of the big mistake. And people are getting weaker and weaker at their ability to tune in to human behavior. Is there
second guessing? I've never seen so many offers rescinded like we've seen in the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, people that are literally picking up and moving across the country, and something somewhere sets off an alarm, and we're rescinding offers for people that have sold their houses and moved their kids. Like, to me, it's insane. It is such a lack of accountability, and such a lack of character on the part of both people and companies that sort of allow this kind of thing to happen. I just don't think there's any accountability anymore and you can't legislate everything, right? So a lot of states legislate you have to be transparent about salary ranges, right? Well, why wouldn't you be? Why do I have to tell you that? Shouldn't every job description include a reasonable range? Like, why would I have to put a law in place? I mean, it would save me time. It would save you time. If you're $100,000 guy, right, and you're looking for a $110,000 year job, you're not going to go through a 6 or an 8 week interview process for a $75,000 one. There is no amount of bedazzling at the end of that process that is going to convince you that this job is worth it for $75K when you're looking for 110, right? But companies still think they're going to get to that. And I'm going to hide that. I'm going to keep this salary close to my vest. And they're going to love so much what we're doing here, even though we're not going to pay them what they're worth, they're going to say yes to the job. It doesn't happen. It just wastes everybody's time.
Everyone's time, right? I have found the easiest way in the hiring process is be so transparent. Here's what the job is. This is the hard part of the job. This is where you're probably going to struggle or fail. And this job may not be right for you for these reasons. but it might be right for these reasons. And I just figure if I lay it out and I'm just like blunt, cold, I made better hires, and they all became like the people I've hired have been all become rock stars because of you find that right cultural fit and the right match. And it can be challenging. What do you think people can do? Obviously we want companies to do different. What can people that are looking for work, that are looking for career change, what can they do to play in this system better?
Yeah, so like we always advise our clients a couple of things. The first is to get it up front, right? When you're talking with a recruiter, someone's reaching out to you for an opportunity, set expectations up front. And it's okay to ask a couple of questions. Things like, how long is this process going to go on? Why is this job vacant, or what happened to the person, before me? And then, what is the salary range for this position? And if you're not getting a straight answer to those things, or if you hear things like, oh, there's been 4 people in this position in the past 2 years, like you want to run, right? Because somebody's being set up to fail for whatever reason. Unless, it's just a really difficult job and maybe they haven't found the right person. But if you're not getting just the basic, or the bar is so low, David, right? Get the bare minimum. If you can't get the bare minimum up front, don't jump into that interview process. Some of them go on for months.
And they don't want to tell you those things. And you're right. You're wasting your time.
You wasted your
Wasting.
time.
And it also,
It's expensive too. You have to travel. You have to buy a new suit. Girls have to, buy a new dress, or, get their nails done, or, put gas in the car. They might have to drive a couple of, it's a lot. It's like a big investment of time and effort, for somebody that doesn't have any, capacity to share with you the basic fundamentals of what this job might entail and how much it might pay you. I think companies need to start realizing that people are in it for the money. They're not in it for the culture, and they're not in it for most people, I think regular everyday people are in it for the money, right? It's a lifestyle that they want to live. They want to be able to afford the roof over their heads. They want to put their kids through college, right? It's basic stuff. There are some folks that are in it for the culture. There are some folks in it for the thrill of the win or whatever. But I think a majority of people are showing up to work every day because somebody's dropping a paycheck in their bank account every other Friday. And companies trying to convince themselves otherwise, I think is just silly.
you got to, yeah, absolutely. It just, my gosh, we could go on and on forever on that. I want to shift gears a little bit and ask about, as you hear about all these, let's talk about culture just for a minute. From your perspective, what tends to get in the way from leaders who want strong culture, but they really struggle to create it?
I don't know why you would struggle to create strong culture. Culture is easy, right? Culture is somebody has a baby, you send a present. Somebody is sick, you tell them to take the day off and, get well soon. Somebody puts in for vacation time and you approve it without question. Someone's birthday, you bring in a cake or you send them a cupcake. Culture is easy. I think that culture is incredibly basic. It's a life thing. It's like how you would treat your neighbor or the garbage man who is picking up your trash on Tuesday morning. Hi, good morning. How are you? It's easy shit. I think they make it harder than it has to be. So I think that people get in the way of culture by trying to build programs around culture. And culture isn't tchotchkes or a pool table or Friday afternoon pizza parties. It's when someone is grieving, when someone is ill, when someone's child is ill, when that somebody wants to go see their kid in the school play or their kid make the soccer playoffs, that you're aware of that. You say, hey, take the afternoon. Good luck. Hope your team wins. That's culture.
Love it. And if someone is feeling stuck in their leadership role right now, what is maybe one small shift you might recommend? I mean, as a business owner, that small shift that can make a real difference in their business or their team.
People
right? Corporate America.
work harder for you when you are mean to them. People will never work harder for you when you yell at them or embarrass them or berate them or tell them that they failed. People will work incredibly hard for you when you consistently remind them of how well they're doing. Or if they're struggling, you're stepping in to help out. You're running interference. You're protecting them in some way. People will work incredibly hard for you when you show everyday kindness. Hey, I brought you a coffee. Hey, let's all go out to lunch. But if you're screaming at someone in your office about something that they did, a goal that they failed to meet, as opposed to, hey, look, we set these goals, really want you to meet them. Let's talk a little bit about why that didn't happen and how we can improve it. That's going to be an incredible relief for someone who's working really hard. As a leader, you have to be able to determine who is that. Is this somebody that's just sort of skating by, or is this somebody that's working really hard and failed? And then be able to make the right adjustments, right? So if it's somebody who doesn't really seem invested, doesn't want the job, maybe that's just not the job for them. The most humane thing that you can do is let them go or say, hey, we're going to let you go in a month. Go look for a new job. And that's fine. But if you have somebody who's working really hard and failing and you're yelling at them, it's like a losing proposition, right? You've got to find a way to help if you want that person to stay.
Love it.
I did a couple of weeks ago about a girl that I hired. This is so many years ago. She had 4 jobs in this company before we figured out which one was the right one for her. And she finally, at the end of the year, when she finally sort of settled into her new role, she's like, why did you stay? And I'm like, well, I didn't see everything that you could do yet. Like, I loved her as a person. She was incredibly and eternally optimistic, very educated, very well spoken, super passionate about our business. Just the role that we originally hired her for, it wasn't the right fit for her. And then we moved her into something else and then something else and then something else. And the fourth something else was the great fit. And sometimes you have to do that. And if you're a leader and you're not willing to do that with people, it just becomes a very sort of churn and burn kind of environment. And then nobody around you, nobody working for your business has buy-in. And you need buy-in more than anything else to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have one last question for you, but before I do, I want to share a quick story. I was working at this company and I had a system engineer, sales engineer that I worked with, and he was phenomenal. Probably one of the best I've ever worked with, one of the best in the company. And they needed someone to move into a different role, like a sales role. So they took this guy who is like one of the best at what he does, by far the best ever that I've worked with. And they move him in a sales role. 6 months later, he failed in a sales role, so they fired him.
Great. See what I mean?
And it was like just the most appalling thing when I look at that. I'm like, you've got to be kidding, right? It's just, they get caught up. I don't know what it is. It's just amazing to me that they don't look at what strengths people have. It's the old Jim Collins, right? The right people, right bus, right seat, all that. And realizing where people are good and identifying, because you typically hire people for a reason. You see a spark, you see something in them, but then we screw it up. It's like hiring John Elway, Peyton Manning, right? Tom Brady, if you're football fans, and you go, man, you're a great quarterback, but you know what? I think I'm going to have you play, wide receiver.
I'm going to be punt. You're going to be the new punter.
That's I like that even better, right? And then they fail at it, and they're like, well, like what are you doing?
Yes, and capitalize on people's strengths. But also we have to talk to people about what they like to do. Because when you like your job, it doesn't really feel like a job. So that'll
not work.
True, right? When you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, the old saying goes. Yeah. However, that I believe that hook, line, and sinker. But I think when you're passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. I'm in here 7 days a week. I have been doing this for a very long time. And I always say every day feels like Christmas Day at Storeyline, because I never know who I'm going to hear from, what email I'm going to get, what story I'm going to hear, the person I'm going to meet. If I didn't feel that way, then I would be drudging through 7-day work, right? So you have to kind of love it. You have to kind of want to do it. And why take people out of an element that they love to do something they don't want to do?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Not at all. Not at all.
It's trying to prove.
Love it. Love it. All right. Last question. This comes from if you haven't heard the podcast before, this comes from a couple places. When I was a kid, I remember my aunts and uncles would come to me when I was little. How's school? Good. How are you? Good. And that was the end of the conversation because they didn't know what questions to ask me. And in the back of my mind, I was like, well, why don't they ask me about, computer club, or why don't they ask me about gym, or why don't they ask me about, that I just won a blue ribbon, or, whatever. And then then I've got 3 kids, and I was having a conversation with one of my daughters sometime back, and it was like, Dad, you're being nosy. Then in another conversation, it's, Dad, you don't know anything about me. And I'm like, okay. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, great. What question do you wish I would ask you that I haven't asked you because you want to be able to tell me something? So my last question for you, Robynn, is that, what is the question you wish people would ask you, but they just don't know to ask you?
I am a very well-known lover of donuts. It's sort of my thing on LinkedIn. People tag me in their donut videos. So you did not ask me, Robynn, what is your favorite donut? My favorite donut is vanilla cream filled.
What is it?
Vanilla cream filled.
Nice. Oh my gosh. There's the question. But that was and that was not what I was expecting. I thought there'd be some deep, this deep meaning. I love it. I love it. Well, Robynn, you have been an absolute joy to have as a guest. If someone wants to learn more about you, Storeyline, what is the best way for them to learn more or get in touch?
Anyone who wants to learn about us, they can find me on LinkedIn. Now, my legal name is Roberta, but I go by Robynn, Robynn Storey. Find me on LinkedIn. Send us a note through there, or you can check us out on our website at www.storyline with an E, STOREYLINE, resumes.com.
Oh, man. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being such a great guest. I so appreciate you taking the time with me today. And folks, this is Inside the Leader's Mind. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please share it, subscribe, and let others know. And if you're on LinkedIn and you're listening right now, could you also give me a comment on LinkedIn when I post this? I would so appreciate it. Thanks. That's it. I'm David Suson. And until next time, all my best to you. Ciao.
Thank you, David.